You ever give 15 years of your life to a place, thinking you've become part of its foundation, only to realize you were just overhead? Replaceable. Disposable. That's what happened to me. One Tuesday morning, without so much as a warning or a damn thank you, I was fired, just like that. But what they didn't know, what my boss especially didn't know, was that I'd been quietly preparing for this day for years. My name is Owen Clay. I'm 47 years old, and until a few weeks ago, I was the senior technical director at Sterling Aerodynamics, one of the top aerospace firms in the Midwest. I'd been there since the company's scrappy startup days, when we worked out of a warehouse that leaked every time it rained. I helped build their propulsion systems from blueprints and pipe dreams. Over the years, I watched us grow into a company with government contracts and a shiny glass headquarters that looked like it belonged in Silicon Valley. I gave everything to that job. Late nights, missed anniversaries, skipped holidays. My daughter, Katie, was 12 the first time I had to cancel a weekend trip because of a test fire that went wrong. She's 27 now and working on a PhD in mechanical engineering. I guess obsession runs in the family. Anyway, it was a Tuesday. I just finished reviewing some system logs from our latest flight tests and was sipping a burnt cup of breakroom coffee when I got the email. No subject line. Just, Owen, please come to HR, immediately. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe something procedural. Benefits paperwork, maybe an audit. But when I walked in and saw Thomas Merrick, the new VP of engineering, already sitting at the table, my stomach dropped. He didn't meet my eye. Karen from HR cleared her throat. Owen, we're making some difficult decisions to realign our strategic priorities. Effective today, your position is being eliminated. I blinked. I'm sorry, what? Merrick shifted in his seat. It's nothing personal. It's just business. Your salary no longer fits into our operational model. We can hire 2 junior engineers for less than half your cost. My jaw clenched. After 15 years, you're cutting me loose for budget optics? Karen slid a folder across the table. You'll receive 6 weeks severance and compensation for unused vacation days. We ask that you not access the internal systems going forward. Your credentials will be deactivated within the hour. Just like that. My entire professional life reduced to a pink folder and an escort out of the building. I didn't say much. Didn't yell. Didn't curse. I just looked at Merrick, memorizing every detail of his smug, polished face. The man had only been with us for 9 months, swooped in from a private tech firm out in California. Knew nothing about aerospace. Hell, barely knew the difference between an APU and an APU controller, but he knew how to slice a budget. Knew how to talk big about agility and streamlining talent. I walked out without a word, clutching my cardboard box like a man walking away from his own funeral. But here's the part they never saw coming. For the last 6 years, I'd been moonlighting, quietly and legally, as an independent systems consultant. Government work, mostly. Confidential stuff. Some of it so buried in NDAs that I barely spoke about it with my own wife. I'd started the side business during a hiring freeze, mostly out of frustration with Sterling's bureaucratic mess. Eventually, it became something more, a quiet backup plan in case the worst ever happened. And now, the worst had happened. So I didn't sit at home sulking. I didn't cry into a beer or send angry emails. I took a few days, met with a lawyer, and pulled out a thick binder I hadn't touched since last Christmas. It was full of contracts, notes, timelines, and something else, something only a handful of people in the country even knew existed. You see, the propulsion system that Sterling had been testing for the past 18 months? The one they were calling the Athena drive, their big-ticket innovation that they thought would win them a Department of Defense contract? I designed it. On my own time. On my own system. With my own schematics. And I never signed it over. They'd been using a prototype that I allowed them to test under a provisional license. And I had just revoked it. They didn't know that part yet. But they would. Real soon. The following Monday, I mailed a certified letter to Sterling Aerodynamics legal department. Inside was a single-page notice of termination for the limited-use intellectual property license I'd granted them 2 years ago. The wording was airtight. No wiggle room. No confusion. The Athena drive schematics were mine, filed under Clay Systems, LLC, a business entity registered in Ohio, with patents pending in both the U.S. and Europe. Sterling had been granted use for internal research and limited prototyping, contingent on active employment by the creator, me. They'd overlooked that clause when Merrick pushed my termination through. It would take them a few days to realize what that meant. But once they did, the whole project would grind to a halt. Every test, every investor presentation, every single meeting with the DoD. I didn't just burn the bridge. I folded the whole damn thing and mailed it back to them in flames. By Wednesday, I started getting phone calls. First from their senior project engineer, Victor Lin, an old friend who wasn't in on the decision to fire me. "Owen," he said, "what's going on? We got a legal freeze order on the Athena testing suite. All flight simulations halted. Procurement shut down. Did you really revoke the IP license?" I didn't want to make him the enemy. "Yeah, I did." "Jesus. Why?" "They fired me, Vic. No warning. No thanks. Just a box and a shove out the door." I had no idea. None of us did. Merrick didn't even consult the engineering leads. It came from up top, fast and quiet. "We thought you were on vacation until we saw your name scrubbed from the system." I said nothing. "They're panicking," he added. "Legal's crawling over everything. There's a rumor the prototype we just demonstrated for the Pentagon is now legally unusable. That true?" "It is," I said. "Tell them to read the fine print." Victor exhaled. "This is going to get ugly." "I'm counting on it." The next call came from their general counsel, some Harvard type with a name like Trevor or Brent. Polished, polite, with that corporate lawyer cadence that tries to sound like a friend but leaves a bruise. "Mr. Clay," he said, "we'd love to open a dialogue about reacquiring the rights to the Athena schematics. We're open to negotiation." "You want to negotiate after throwing me out like trash?" "I'm not here to discuss the past. We're looking forward." "Well, I'm not. I'm enjoying the view in the rearview mirror." He cleared his throat. Withholding critical IP from a government project could be seen as obstruction. I cut him off. "Don't insult me with empty threats. You know the clause. You signed off on it. You terminated the condition by terminating me." There was a pause, just long enough for him to realize he was talking to someone who'd done his homework. "Would you be willing to come in and meet with Mr. Merrick directly?" he asked. I laughed, full and bitter. "Let me think. No. We're prepared to offer compensation." I hung up. Later that night, I got a text from Katie, my daughter. "Dad, saw something weird. Thought you should know." Attached was a forwarded message from one of her research advisors, a woman named Dr. Renshaw. It was an internal university email showing that Sterling Aerodynamics had reached out to her department with an urgent request for help analyzing a propulsion framework. They'd attached a white paper, my white paper, with the company's branding crudely slapped over it. They were trying to crowdsource a solution to a system they didn't even legally own. It was pathetic, and desperate, and reckless. Katie's message followed. "They're trying to build your engine without you. What are you going to do?" I stared at the screen for a long time before typing back, "Let them try." By Friday, I'd spoken to my attorney, filed an injunction to halt all derivative use of the Athena system, and contacted a defense tech group I'd worked with during my consulting years. They had funding. They had government ties. More importantly, they had a burning hatred for Sterling Aerodynamics, after Sterling underbid them for a military drone contract last year. Now they wanted a partner. Over a steak dinner in Columbus, the CEO, Richard Holland, slid a folder across the table to me. Inside was a contract. 6 figures up front. Back-end bonuses. Full development support. My name on everything. And a guarantee. We'll have Athena flying under our flag before Sterling can even reboot their testing suite. I signed. That night, back at home, I sat in my garage with a glass of whiskey, staring at the old project binders I'd pulled down from the shelves. Schematics. Failure logs. Redline notes that only I understood. 15 years, I thought. They tossed me like I was nothing. But I wasn't nothing. I was the engine. And they just fired the ignition. The Monday after I signed the deal with Holland Tech, I got a call from someone I hadn't heard from in over a decade. Linda Krell, former Sterling engineer, now lead propulsion analyst at a D.C.-based defense think tank called Promethean. Back in the early days of Sterling, Linda and I had spent months in a dusty side lab working on one of the earliest magnetic containment systems. She was brilliant, no nonsense, and fiercely independent. We'd lost touch after she left the company in 2013, fed up with the bureaucratic chokehold and Merrick-style ladder climbers before they even had names. "Owen," she said as soon as I picked up. "I heard what happened. I don't want to say I told you so, but I told you so." I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. "Yeah, you definitely did." I'm not calling to gloat, she continued. I'm calling because Sterling's trying to present your Athena design as their own in a funding round I'm advising. They brought us a proposal this morning. Your math, your model, their name. My hand tightened around the phone. They're pushing it at the Defense Advisory Board? Not just pushing, they're betting the house. They claimed it's company-owned tech, ready for Phase 2 development. They even slapped a rushed set of redacted notes in the appendix, claiming internal IP transfer. Owen, their gambling your name doesn't carry enough weight anymore. That stung, but it was also the crack I needed. You willing to help me burn that down? I asked. Linda didn't hesitate. Send me everything. Every version, every license, every note you ever took. If they plagiarized a single phrase, I'll find it. And when I do, I'll bury them. For the next 48 hours, I pulled a full archive dump from my Clay Systems backups, schematics, draft revisions, timestamped simulation files, email receipts from consultations I did with Sterling's old R&D team. I didn't even have to dig that deep to find proof of ownership. In one file, Athena_V3, 2_final, docs, my digital signature was embedded in the metadata. Sterling had sent the same file to Promethean, unaltered. They hadn't even bothered to remove the document history. Idiots. Linda called 2 days later. God M. Not only is your name in the metadata, the technical write-up includes your original formatting, down to the exact font and page margins. Their legal team either didn't check it or didn't care. Both, I muttered. They're going to be blacklisted from the entire advisory board. That means no contracts, no bids, no tech showcases. You might have just killed them, Owen. I wanted to say it felt good. I wanted to enjoy that moment. But all I could think about was the 15 years I'd given that company. Birthdays missed, holidays worked, Katie's middle school graduation that I watched on a cell phone screen from a testing bay in New Mexico. They'd taken those years like they were entitled to them. And now they were trying to steal the only part of me I hadn't handed over. Linda paused. Also, there's something else you should know. What? I don't know if you remember a guy named Lucas Moran? I nearly dropped the phone. Lucas had been my intern back in 2015. Sharp kid. Quiet. Always asked the right questions. He left after a year and disappeared from the radar. I'd assumed he went back to school or left the industry. Linda continued. He works for me now. He saw Sterling's presentation this morning and recognized your work instantly. He's the one who flagged it. I sat back in my chair, stunned. I taught that kid how to write his first diagnostics suite, I said. Well, he just helped you dismantle a $400 million fraud. I couldn't stop smiling. Linda kept going. Promethean's pulling out of Sterling. We're issuing an ethics review and referring it to the DoD. Once that's public, no one in defense tech will touch them. Thank you, Linda. You didn't have to go this far. Sure I did, she said. We're not all vultures in this business. Some of us still believe in honoring the people who build the engines that keep the sky from falling. That hit me harder than I expected. We hung up. I stared at my screen. At the folder labeled Athena_original, sitting open with the green check marks from the backup sync glowing like tiny badges of war. The next day, I met with Richard Holland and his executive lead at their Boston campus. When I walked into the boardroom, they had a full prototype schedule mapped out on a whiteboard and 2 engineers waiting for a system brief. Richard handed me a badge. Full access. Head of R&D. A 6-month runway to bring Athena 4.0 to flight readiness. You think you're up for this? He asked. I looked him in the eye. I've been up for this for 15 years. 2 weeks into my work with Holland Tech, everything hit the fan. Sterling Aerodynamics was under fire from every angle. Government contracts frozen, pending bids suspended, and internal emails subpoenaed after Promethean's ethics review went public. The headlines were brutal. Sterling accused of IP misrepresentation ran across every major defense journal. Within days, the Department of Defense issued a formal inquiry. But the real shock came when I received a call from Katie, my daughter. I was sitting at my desk, staring at Athena 4.0's new heat dissipation model when her name lit up my phone. Hey, sweetheart. I answered, trying to keep my voice light. She didn't waste time. Dad, someone from Sterling showed up at the university today. My stomach dropped. What? Who? Some executive, name was Alex Roth. Said he was part of their legal recovery team. He asked to speak with Dr. Renshaw, but when she turned him away, he found me instead. Said he wanted to clear up confusion about the Athena design. Said you were mentally unstable, that you'd stolen proprietary files on your way out. I stood up, heart pounding. He said what? That you fabricated the license termination. That Holland is helping you commit IP fraud. He even brought copies of your personnel file and said you were reprimanded years ago for erratic behavior. I couldn't speak. Rage hit me so hard I could barely hold the phone. Dad, Katie continued, I don't believe any of it. Neither does Dr. Renshaw. But he said if we didn't cooperate, the university might lose its research grant. He threatened my advisor, Dad. I sat back down slowly, trying to calm the burn rising in my chest. They'd gone too far. Coming after me was business. But coming after my daughter? That was war. I'll handle it, I said. I promise. Later that night, I met with my attorney and Holland's legal counsel. Together, we drafted a cease and desist that hit Sterling's inbox the next morning. It didn't just cover Katie, it named Roth personally. We added copies of the license agreements, Athena's full project logs, and an affidavit from Linda confirming the presentation fraud. But that wasn't enough. I needed to make this personal. I needed Merrick to feel it. So I made a decision I'd avoided until now. I scheduled a meeting with the Defense Contract Audit Agency, the team responsible for evaluating ethics in federal contractors. And I brought everything. Emails, timestamps, drafts with track changes, metadata with my author signature, and a log of every contact Sterling had made with third parties while knowingly misrepresenting ownership of the Athena prototype. It wasn't just an ethics violation. It was procurement fraud. That same week, a formal complaint landed on Merrick's desk from the DCA. And right behind it, another notice from the Office of the Inspector General. Sterling's biggest military contract, $180 million over 4 years, was now under investigation for violation of IP law and false claims during the application process. Word got out fast. By Friday, Sterling stock had dropped 28%. The board panicked. And Merrick? He tried to spin it, of course. Issued a statement blaming legacy staff ambiguities and unclear contractual obligations that were under internal review. But he made one fatal mistake. He mentioned my name, directly, on national record. And he lied. Mr. Clay, he said in an interview with AeroWatch Daily, was a respected member of our engineering team, but he left under complicated circumstances. We are surprised by his recent claims, which we believe are exaggerated and opportunistic. The next morning, my lawyer filed a defamation suit. The number had 7 digits. And now Merrick wasn't just dealing with regulatory fallout. He was personally liable for libel and career sabotage. That weekend, I sat on the balcony of my apartment with Katie. She'd driven in from the university just to see me. We shared coffee as the sun dipped below the lake. I'm sorry this touched you, I said quietly. She shook her head. I'm not. You spent years letting people think they could walk over you because you didn't shout back. But this time, you stood up, and they didn't expect it. You're not disappointed? No, Dad. I'm proud. You didn't just fight for yourself. You fought back smart, clean, on your terms. I looked out across the water, the wind cold against my arms. It felt like something was ending, but also beginning. I didn't expect to have to burn it all down, I said. Katie sipped her coffee. Sometimes you don't start the fire, but you're the one left holding the hose. We sat there in silence a while longer. The quiet before the final blow. The day the final blow landed, I wasn't in court. I wasn't watching headlines or checking emails. I was in a hangar in Nevada, standing on the concrete floor of a private airstrip, watching Athena 4.0 come to life. 2 months after the scandal broke, Holland Tech had assembled a small team, only a dozen of us, to finish what I started. And now, the prototype was real, standing tall in the center of the hangar. Gleaming composite panels, advanced compression nozzles, modular engine casing with redundancy layers even Sterling's engineers never dreamed of. I ran my hand along the housing. This was my design, fully mine now, refined, legal, funded, and free of corporate parasites. It didn't feel like revenge anymore. It felt like restoration. But I hadn't forgotten Merrick. The man had gone quiet after the defamation suit was filed. Public appearances stopped. Internal memos leaked that he was on administrative leave pending legal resolution. Behind the scenes, I'd heard whispers. Sterling's board had started distancing themselves, and several of their government liaisons had resigned. They'd become radioactive. One morning, a news alert hit my phone. Sterling Aerodynamics CEO resigns amid contract collapse. But that wasn't the end. A week later, I received an anonymous tip from someone inside Sterling, an engineer I didn't know, but who knew me. The message was short. Internal audit reveals Merrick backdated signatures. Forced IP documentation through without legal review. Board has evidence. They're preparing to sue him personally for losses. It was poetic. The man who fired me to save money was now the reason the company was bleeding out. Still, I felt conflicted. Not because I pitied him, but because, despite everything, I realized something. He'd done me a favor. If Merrick hadn't fired me, I might still be rotting behind that office window, still passing over patents, still choking on the culture I helped build while watching strangers profit off my work. He didn't just end my career at Sterling. He freed me. A few days later, Linda called. You sitting down? What now? The DoD just issued a provisional funding agreement. Holland Tech gets exclusive development rights to the Athena-class drive for the next 24 months. $40 million over 2 phases. I didn't speak. Owen, she said, you're back. And this time, your name is on the contract. When I told Katie, she just smiled. You ever think maybe this wasn't revenge? She asked. Maybe it was a correction. That night, I got an email from Merrick's old Sterling account. It was now deactivated, but the message had been sent before the plug was pulled. Owen, you think you've won. You think this will end with your name on a file and mine forgotten. But people like you build engines. People like me build empires. And you never forget who made you clean the floors. TM. I read it twice. Then I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because for the first time in 15 years, I realized Merrick had never understood what we really do. We don't build empires. We build the fuel that makes them fly. And when people like him try to steal that fuel, they crash. A month later, Athena 4.0 took its first test flight. Small scale. Controlled burn. Perfect metrics. The engineers cheered. Holland shook my hand. Investors clapped. I didn't stay for the celebration. I walked outside, into the desert night, the sky above sharp and clean. I thought about all the years I spent giving away my time, my designs, my voice, and how one man's betrayal gave me back something more important than a paycheck. My name, my work, my worth. I got into my truck, started the engine, and drove out into the black. No destination, no map, just me, the stars, and the sound of something finally taking flight.